Welcome to Parks Uncut. I'm Monica and I'm the Parks Manager for Kensington and Chelsea. I probably need to explain what being Parks Manager actually is, but I'll try and be brief. In Kensington and Chelsea, being Parks Manager means I'm responsible for our parks, their upkeep, improvement, and also our cemeteries, including burials and everything that goes with that service. We also look after green spaces on a public highway, including planters, grass verges, roundabouts, and planting in plots. All in, we look after 28 parks, 2 cemeteries, and over 60 additional planters and street greening schemes. My job involves working with our residents and community to hear their views, visiting the parks to check on maintenance or improvement projects, writing policy and strategy that will help set direction for the future of the service based on resident feedback and developments in climate change, pest and disease management, and new or changing legislation relating to cemeteries and burials. I'm really lucky that I have a fantastic team with so many incredible, knowledgeable and dedicated colleagues. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it's very similar looking after parks. There are a lot of other teams in the council who have a role to play in the running of these spaces, and my job is also to keep all of these functions running alongside each other smoothly. Today we're going to zone in on one of these areas, which is our contract with idverde, which covers the maintenance of the parks and cemeteries in the borough. We're joined today by Ben and Dave from idverde. Can you both introduce yourself, please, and tell us what your role is?
Hi, I'm Ben Bennell from idverde, and I'm the Operations Director of the area.
And I'm Dave Picker. I'm the Contract Manager for idverde in Kensington and Chelsea, and looking after solely Kensington and Chelsea.
Thank you. So Ben, you actually have a really long history with the park and with the borough. How did you first get into horticulture and end up in Holland Park?
Yes, you're right. I've really always been interested in horticulture. My aunt and uncle in South Africa, I'm from Port Elizabeth, had a plant nursery. So my first job really as probably a 9-year-old or 10-year-old in my school holidays was helping sell plants in their plant nursery. So I remember that really fondly, and splitting up Inca lilies at my home to sell on myself. So I had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in my youth. And when I wasn't particularly in love with school, so when I finished school, took a gap year and went traveling through Africa, and then was wondering kind of what to study and what to do. And I thought I was set in this garden in Malawi, and I thought, I could help landscape their garden to earn some money, which I did. And I then thought, okay, well, I'll study horticulture or landscaping. Actually, I thought landscaping, and then didn't get into landscaping. My grades were too low. Got accepted into horticulture in Cape Town, and Cape Town is it's got some of the most number of plant species per square kilometre in the world, in the Fynbos region with the proteas, etc. So it's got an amazing number of plants. So I went to study horticulture there, and studied horticulture in Cape Town for 3 years.
And then what happened when you came here?
And so my dad's English, and he came out to England just after the war with his parents, so I always had dual nationality. I thought I'd come here for 2 years, and that was in 2001. So I arrived in London, and I got a job in Clapham for a gardening company, and after 4 weeks managed to get fired. Really. It was a good job, really, at the time, because it was sort of like landscape gardener type role, but I was so clueless. I just didn't know which way was up. And so, I'm not surprised. I would have fired myself, actually. I'd be a bit sooner than that, thinking back. And so,
Has much changed?
I think that's like, if you work there, which way I work for still working it out. No, but I have a better grasp of which way is up now. So then, really desperately needed a job, and so ended up cutting grass in a cemetery in Croydon for 2 months, which was interesting. And then I got an interview in Holland Park with It was waterers at the time, and I got the job as Holland Park head gardener, to my amazement. And there was a team of about 14 people. I was 22 years old, and I loved it. I worked here for 2 years as the head gardener. At the time, the contract changed it went from waterers to quadrant. So I 2V transferred, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then, but basically, I guess after 2 years, I wanted to progress, into management or progress my career, and there wasn't really anywhere within the contract that I could do that at the time. So I left and ended up working for another gardening company.
Then you came back to us. I think it was 2008, 2009.
Yes.
And you've been involved in this contract sort of one way or another ever since.
Yeah.
It's quite a long history.
A long history of working here. Yes.
And sort of by contrast, Dave, you joined sort of working with our borough fairly recently. So what was your background?
My background's far less interesting to Ben's. I actually came into this industry purely by accident. I spent 10 years in the motor trade, from an apprentice, worked my way up into management. Fell out of love with that trade, went travelling. So similar to Ben, got fed up, went travelling. And then when I came back, I didn't really know which way I was going to go. I think it was at the time that I was in our program, Ground Force, with Tidmarsh, Charlie Dimmock, and Sam Tommy, somebody. That was really popular. I'm like, that's interesting. So a friend of the family had a company and did that. So I went and did landscaping for a couple of years. That business folded. They also had their own grounds maintenance franchise, and they said, Dave, we know this isn't your passion, cutting grass and weeding beds. There's a job there if you want it. So reluctantly, I stayed with them. 9 years later, decided, as much as I hated it, I needed to move on. And I joined Quadrant then in 2010 as a supervisor. And so for an industry that I really didn't like, 24 years later, I'm still here. Now I do enjoy it. So there's obviously something there that draws you in.
We've, through in various forms, Quadrant and then idverde, we've had the contract since 2003. So that's probably, the starting point for it. We've got this very, very long history with the borough. And so there's kind of consistency. We haven't had many changes in managers over that time. And we've seen kind of the change in the borough, the investments that's happened, the change in structure. We had bi-borough at one stage, we went back to single borough, and it's been quite a journey over the course of the last 20-something years that we've been a part of, and we feel deeply sort of embedded in the contract.
Really, thanks, Ben. I guess, so thinking back about that history, what would you say is the biggest achievement that you've had here?
idverde or?
Either idverde or you personally.
I think, part of our biggest achievements have been the kind of diversification of what we do. It started off as just as a gardening contract, a grounds maintenance contract, and that is the main focus of what we do, maintaining the parks and open spaces and cemeteries. But over time, we've taken on the sports booking service, the sports management service, and the bereavement service as well. And the bereavement service, obviously, both that and sports, but the bereavement service in particular is a very critical service, working with people often at the lowest point of their lives. There's a lot of kind of statutory requirements, the record keeping and burial and stuff like that. So kind of being a trusted partner of the council, and kind of that for me shows that we are that because of the addition of these services, which are very core services to the council.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think watching the contract grow and seeing it sounds like such a cliche phrase, but the added value that we've been able to collectively achieve, through even just growing the apprenticeship program, the work that you can do with the supported interns, just all the other community projects that you've been able to support, and the volunteer programs and all these other things that we've been able to add over time to this contract, and not necessarily at cost to us either, has actually been a real achievement. And I think credit to the joint working that we've had in idverde, and I guess your willingness to try some of these new schemes and to try other things with us and pilot certain schemes with us first.
Yes.
I think is a real testament to the contract.
Yeah.
I
think having the contract for so long, having that close working partnership with the client team, the flexibility is there, the trust is there that we can take on more and more. We're prepared to try more and more because we feel that we have the backing. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. We will give it a go. But luckily, in touch wood, we've been very successful in what we've tried to make it far more diverse. I think it's hard to put one big achievement. I think there's so many small, little great things that we do. You mentioned the apprentices, getting local people onto the contracts that are out of work, working their action disability, and getting people that can't normally find work, don't have the self-confidence to go out there, and watching them come in for a term at a time. And a completely different person leaves us full of confidence or wanting to return to us. It's them small things, I think, that Maine is such a great place to work.
I think it's definitely the people that we've known, just walking into the glass house this morning, there's people that I've known for like 15 plus years, and they've stayed here. We've got amazing longevity of staff on this contract. And I think that's one of the special things about the parks and the borough and the cemeteries, is that people feel attached to them. I think of Holland Park as it's a part of me, and it's partly mine. I do, and I know that a lot of other people, feel the same way. So there's deep connections to the place.
I feel with a lot of the stuff, it's never just a job. There's a real commitment. It's not people really want to be here, and I see that in how the teams work when they're out in the park, the ownership they take of the spaces, how they want to improve them, they want to do more, they want to improve the spaces. Everyone's coming up with ideas of how to do it, and giving us their suggestions and getting feedback and building relationships with the public. It's not just my team that are doing that, it's across the contract. It's with all the gardeners and park keepers and all the stuff all the way through. And I think we do have a really good team here, and I think they show that commitment all the time. And it's a really nice, I guess, not just a nice place to work. That sounds a bit sort of silly, but it's not just a job.
No.
And I think you're right. I think when you look at contracts, you need the buy-in from the teams, and you need the buy-in from the staff, and you've definitely got it 100% here. You can go to any park, see any of the mobile teams, and you talk to them about their work, and they're all very passionate, and they'll tell you what they care about. They'll tell you what they don't like. They'll tell you what they do like, but they all buy in. Go listen, and then you look at the turnover. It's not a big turnover of staff here, and some of these staff have been here through some challenging times, and they've stuck with us. And that's credit to them. And like you said, that they actually want to be here, and that's hard to find, I think, in some contracts. It's a very low turnover of staff here, and I think that speaks for itself.
And I think both written into the contract from my side as the client, and also from the commitments that idverde have given us, there's a really good emphasis on training and self-improvement and upskilling and giving people opportunities to do more if they want to, or learn more if they want to. And so I think that really, really works for us.
Yeah, everyone has the opportunity to study like a level 2 in horticulture, or 3. That's on our time at our cost on the contract. And then we've got an additional pay scale to kind of reward that when people do that. But it just makes, thinking about what achievements have been. I remember when I left here as the head gardener and then came back sort of 8 years later into management, I was amazed at the change that had taken place over those years. And I think when you're here all the time, it's harder to see it, those sort of small incremental changes. So it actually took me leaving and then coming back to go, oh, crikey, look at all this development. We'd had a new splash pad at Cremorne, the Campy wet pad happened, all of those things that happened in the course of the years that I'd been away. But those developments are still happening all the time. It's just that harder to see them when you're involved with them so closely.
I think it is important really to step back and kind of look at collectively what we all achieve. And I say that to my team a lot. It's really important to step back and look at all the good work that is happening, because we're always looking ahead at kind of the next thing, what we need to improve. And that's so important, but it's also really important to look back and think, look at what we're achieving and the opportunities we're able to provide and the way we're able to support residents better, and not just through the jobs, but through that kind of having that good contingent of staff and having people that really invest and you see it out on the park, and the benefit that has for everyone is then tangible.
Yeah. I think the speed that the contract moves as well, constantly developing parks where we can. So for example, you look at Holland Park, changing the box hedging in the Dutch garden there. Massive project.
And was getting eaten by the moths.
So we've completely changed that. It's a new concept in place that we all love, and hopefully the public love too. But already now I walk out there and I don't really notice it, because the next thing's now happening. So when you step away and then come back, people probably notice that. Constantly changing on this contract, constantly developing these big challenges we do. You forget like that almost, because you're on to the next one, on to the next.
And you just have to in a garden. I think that's not, just a more widely, a sort of concept about gardens more widely. So I think people sometimes forget that this continuum investment, it's not just a one-off capital spend and then, the thing's done. You actually have to have an annual, you need to invest in it every single year, not just in the maintenance, but in that kind of, rejuvenation of some plants, or the reseeding of the lawns, or there's always a need to kind of invest back in that, and we've definitely got that here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, something actually that I also want to pick up that you said, Ben, was about kind of horticulture and training and the salary structure, because actually that's something I was really passionate about when we got into writing this contract, was promoting horticulture as more than a minimum wage job, which it has for so long. And actually that's a really big deal, because for these guys, we sort of talked about, we're talking on this podcast about sort of Latin names for plants, and we'll do a bit more of a deep dive into sort of horticulture and what it means. But there's so much involved in maintaining what we have out there, and there's so much study and learning, there's so much skill involved. And I think one thing that makes this sort of partnership really good is that we all agree that this is a key skill, it's an important skill, and it does deserve to be more than just a minimum wage job. So I think that's something that really works for both of us. But on the flip side, I guess, what challenges are facing the industry, do you think?
That's like recruitment.
Well, funny, I hear about organisations talking about recruitment and retention all the time, but they're not talking about performance and reward. And you talk about it being a sort of a minimum way. Gardening isn't a skilled role, is what can be looked at, or people that don't do well in school. Well, this is a job that you can just go to, and don't worry, you don't need skills to kind of get into it. And it is true that it's an easy industry for people to access, and that's a good thing. But actually, there are all sorts of skilled layers throughout it, and I think that's something, yes, that we as a company and our sort of push for as well, is that you can, look at it. I think the fact that I came from the tools, you can start off in the tools. If you want to head into management, you can. It's relatively low entry level to start your own business, whether you're a tree surgeon or a gardener. I think Barney did a piece recently where there was, I don't want to get the number wrong, but there was a couple of hundred different routes of industry within our sector, in sort of within horticulture, grounds maintenance, arboriculture, that you could actually choose as a career, and it's relatively recession proof as well, which is good. But I think recognizing that as an industry, that we're always going to be talking about recruitment problems. If we don't talk about recognition and performance and reward like other industries do so well at, we're always going to struggle.
Brilliant. Thank you both. This has been a really good chance to showcase sort of the people who work behind the scenes to keep our parks looking so good. And it will be the first of a sort of series where we'll start meeting more of your team and getting to know who else is out there working in our parks. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. If I could just clarify that I do actually enjoy being in this industry.
Oh, good. That's good.
After a while, I was looking for